One of the things that is talked about a lot in motherhood is losing our identity, how we've lost our identity, or we feel like we've lost parts of our identity, or even when we're pregnant, feeling like we don't want to lose our identity. And it's certainly something I have talked a lot about. I had a friend reach out to me last night and say, thank you so much for talking about identity loss and talking about this side of motherhood, because she's someone who doesn't know if she wants to be a mom and she wants to see the well-rounded picture. And it got me thinking, am I painting a well-rounded picture? We talk about identity loss a lot, but what does it look like? What does it feel like? And what about the other side? What about when you find yourself again and you create yourself again and you realize maybe you've just shed those layers to become someone new? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about identity loss, what it looks like, what is identity, and then how can we build it back? So if you're pregnant, if you are a new mom, if you are a seasoned mom who maybe hasn't put back those pieces yet, this video is for you. But before we jump into it, hi, my name is Sam. I'm a matrescence educator and a passionate advocate of motherhood, and I believe you deserve to enjoy this. I believe you deserve to be seen, and most importantly, I believe you deserve to find yourself through motherhood instead of losing yourself to it. So if that sounds good for you, make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's jump into this video. I don't know if I just said that right, but it's okay. So this is not going to be a full in-depth video on identity and all the intricacies of identity loss. However, I do want to paint an overall picture that I feel good about. So before we jump into identity loss, we do need to have an idea of what our identity is. Who are we? What are the different layers to us? It's not just one thing. And oftentimes we can confuse our labels and our roles in life as our identity. I am a daughter. I am an employee. I am a fitness coach. I am a woman. Those become our identity when really they are just aspects of our identity. I'm going to be using Nikki McCoon's model of the emerging and evolving self. This is from the Seasons of Matrescence education course. It's something that I went through to become a matrescence educator, and you can find that link down below. It is wonderful, but this model really paints the picture of just how interconnected a lot of things are in forming our identity. There are the external factors of our identity, and then there's the internal factors of our identity. And we'll start with the external ones because I think they're a little bit easier to understand and label. And the first ones are those roles, the roles we play in our lives, the things that can be changed. Things like daughter, things like employee or engagement coordinator or content creator, things like sister, friend, fitness enthusiast, all those roles that we play in our day-to-day life. The next thing is our relationships. These kind of go hand in hand with roles, but they're more specific. Like I am the wife of Tom Hall. I am the mother to Teddy Hall, and the different relationships we have in our lives with the different people in our lives. Again, these can be changed, these can shift over time. Sorry if you hear the clinking in the background. My husband is working out on the opposite side of this wall. Then we have our actions. These are the things we do in our day-to-day life that do give us a sense of self. Things like exercising, walking, calling our mom, getting up early, a nighttime routine, playing on your phone, reading, watching your favorite show, drinking a lot of caffeine, digging into your favorite Reddit subthread. Subthread, is that a thing? Your subreddit. Yeah? Watching YouTube videos. These are the actions that we do in our day-to-day life that again give us a sense of self and become part of our identity. Then we have our values. These are the things that we place as important in our lives. They can be things like honesty and truth, things like family or time with family. These are more that compass. This can be being a good employee. This can be being productive. This could be being present. All of those are values that we can align our actions to. Then we have our inner self, and this is our inner world, our personality, our character traits, the thoughts that we carry in our heads, maybe our neuroses, the fact that we're a Leo or an Enneagram 3. I'm a Leo and an Enneagram 3. Clearly. This can also be the stories that we've told ourselves our whole life, that inner critic in our head. It's our memories and our lived experiences. And then we have our inner knowing and our inner true self. And this is that higher self. And this might be something that you're not connected with yet, or maybe will never be connected to. But if you are, you know what I'm talking about. As you sit there and think right now, there is someone observing your thoughts. There is a you that is watching you talk and listening to your thoughts and can call out those thoughts. That is your soul, and that is your inner self, and that is your truest knowing. And that is something that you can tap into. What would be ideal is that that inner self dictates our identity, but in most cases, the outer self, the roles we play and the actions that we do actually dictate our identity. And when we become a mom, a lot of these pieces to our identity start to fall away while new things are added to our identity. I'm going to use myself as the avatar, as the explanation for this, because again, I want to paint a full picture and I want to talk about how this can feel. And I'm going to talk from my experience because it's what I know best. The identity that I held before I had Teddy was I was a wife, I was a fitness instructor, I was an online fitness and nutrition coach, I was a student getting my master's in exercise science and sports nutrition. Behaviors or my actions were I worked out frequently. I spent a lot of time with my husband. We like to play card games. We like to binge watch Netflix. I like to go visit my family frequently and really whenever I wanted to. My husband and I spent a lot of time together, again, watching TV, playing games, going out for dinner, things like that. And then we spent a lot of time apart, me going on trips, him going on trips, and just doing what we wanted to when we wanted to. My inner knowing I was very connected to. I had a really strong sense of faith. I was able to tap into myself and into my intuition and into that inner knowing. I had a spiritual practice that I was very confident in, and I had really strong friendships with a lot of different people in a lot of different areas of life. The identity shift for me and for a lot of people can begin in preconception or for most people in pregnancy. This is when we start to experience changes and things start to fall away. This is also called fall in the seasons of matrescence model, or autumn, where those leaves start changing colors and they start to fade away. In my case, I had things like movement. I was really tired in pregnancy and I didn't move as much as I did. Those daily actions became less. My workouts became less frequent. And that was something I really identified with. And so that felt weird to me. My friendships started to change because a lot of my friends weren't pregnant, had never been pregnant, didn't want to talk about pregnancy and baby, when that was a big thing on my mind. And that's another thing, that inner world, my inner thoughts, the things that I usually thought about, the things that I would ruminate on, the things I would dream about, started to change because thoughts of motherhood and baby and what to do and when to do it started to take over. And that inner world started to shift. And that was in pregnancy alone. Then postpartum comes, the birth comes, and that's where the biggest shift happens for a lot of us. In the seasons of matrescence, we often call this winter, and that is where things fall away. Those leaves that changed color in autumn have fallen away, and now we have a bare tree. A lot of those things that we thought about, that we did, that we cared about, that we valued, the roles completely fall away. Things like binge watching TV with my husband didn't happen anymore. Playing games with my husband didn't happen anymore. Picking up and leaving and driving 2.5 hours to my family's didn't happen anymore. Those friendships that I valued weren't as close because I didn't have time to nurture them and they didn't care about what I cared about. My daily actions were different. I wasn't working out as much. I wasn't spending as much time on myself and watching YouTube videos and doing makeup tutorials, and the things that I thought about changed completely. My world was all about this little baby that I was so excited to have and to love, but still those thoughts shifting so quickly was very disorienting. And at the same time, all of those things fell away and a bunch of new things were added. And if you want to see a more visual representation of this, you can look at this video up here on how your daily life changes after you have a baby. And a lot of new tasks were added to my life. And so all these things that I was doing before, the actions that filled my day before, were no longer there. But now these new ones are that I don't identify with, but that I have to keep doing. This can create a real big dissonance between who we thought we were and who we are now. And a lot of times that creates that sense of loss, of who am I now? Everything that I did and felt and thought before isn't there anymore. And that's what we mean by that identity loss. Two things to consider here when we talk about identity loss. I think it can be really challenging for us to even realize that this is a lost sense of self, because very rarely do we sit down and think about, what is my sense of self? Who am I? What are these layers to my identity? So that can make this challenging. But also for those of us who do have a really strong sense of self, who know who we are, who know what we identify with, when we experience that change, that too can be very difficult because those things that we held on so tightly to are no longer there. Over 60% of women say that they experienced a lost sense of self and struggled with a lost sense of self in the postpartum period or after becoming a mom. That's a pretty big number. However, for other people, this can be a really empowering thing. It can give them things to think about and focus on that they enjoy thinking about, that they enjoy talking about, and that this shift is welcomed right from the beginning. I think a lot of people who go into motherhood with realistic expectations, they know what their daily tasks are going to look like, they know what their life is going to become, that this transition can be a little easier for them. But for a lot of us first-time moms, we not only have not clear expectations, but often we have unrealistic expectations for that postpartum period. And so we don't know what's coming. We don't know what those daily tasks are going to look like. And everything that we were mentally prepared for, what we thought we were entering into, isn't really there. So not only do we have this lost sense of self, we also have this lost sense of expectation. And this can bring about a real sense of grief, of the fact that who I was is no longer there. And especially in those early postpartum days, it can feel like that person is never coming back. We also have that sense of grief that what we expected didn't happen, that we lost this imagined self, that we lost this imagined experience. From here, a lot of things can happen. I tried to get back into the doing to kind of mask this feeling. I thought if I could get back into the actions that I once did before, if I could get back to the doing, it would give me back that sense of self. It would give me back this feeling of she's back, I'm back to my old self, I was gonna bounce back, I was gonna be that person again. And I know a lot of people who do that. They seek that sense of stability and achievement by doing and by focusing on things that are in their control. Things like sleep schedules and feeding schedules and buying things that give them back that sense of autonomy and control. For other people, it can be a time of real confusion, of not knowing what to do, of analysis paralysis and being just feeling kind of stuck in that season. For some people, they can recognize that that shedding of the skin is for a reason already, and throughout that initial transition, they can let go of that as it happens in order to step into who they're becoming. So if you felt that lost sense of self, if you felt anything that I've talked about, you felt that grief in the early postpartum days, you felt that sadness, you're not alone. And it's not for no reason, right? There were a lot of factors that we just talked about that would create that lost sense of self. Please. Stop. But the wonderful thing is, like Nikki McCune talks about, this is kind of like a stuck kaleidoscope. When we are pre-pregnancy, when we are who we've always been, our kaleidoscope is one picture. And as we go through pregnancy, that kaleidoscope turns. And for a lot of us in early motherhood, that kaleidoscope gets stuck in this mother view of being in this world of motherhood, of all of the things that we are consumed with. And that picture of who we once were, those pieces of us that were in the picture before, just aren't there right now because our kaleidoscope is stuck. But the beautiful thing is that as we transition, as we start to integrate, as we get through this winter, our kaleidoscope does start to turn again and we enter spring. And spring is where we start to reintegrate those pieces of ourselves that are still there. We start to integrate the new pieces, the new gifts, the new things we have learned throughout our winter, and we start to become mother and we start to become this new version of ourselves and step into our new identity. And I think this is what often gets missed when we talk about losing our identity. It's not just that you've lost your identity. When you become a mom and you go through matrescence, you lose your identity to find your new one. And that doesn't happen for everyone. It takes intention and it takes leaning into it a little bit to recognize and accept that, yeah, some of this stuff is gone and some of this stuff has changed, but now here I am. And now here is who I am becoming and who I want to be. So what can spring look like? Spring can look like getting more confident in your motherhood, things coming a little bit easier so you don't have to think about as much anymore. This might be just your child getting a little bit older so you're not on the clock 24/7 all the time. This could be going back to work and getting back some of those responsibilities. This could be picking up an old hobby or getting back to exercise or getting back to some of the things you once did. This could be leaning into some of those motherhood things that you're really starting to enjoy now, like tummy time or like playing with your baby or going for walks or baby wearing. Finding those new pieces of your identity that you enjoy and that you want to keep incorporating. It could be taking some of those really hard lessons that you learned in motherhood and starting to incorporate them into who you are. Things like the resilience that you can take on and recognizing, like I always say, I've done more on less. I've been through really tired days and I have done more than I'm doing today. It can be starting to be recognized by your community as the mother that you are. It really is just putting together those pieces that weren't there before and adding those into the pieces of you that are left. And so yes, losing yourself in motherhood is hard, but it's also a gift. In losing yourself in motherhood, you are going through that rite of passage. You are separating from who you were before and you are stepping into who you are becoming. And that is a wonderful thing. Again, it is not something that is easy. And it is something that is meant to be facilitated by an elder. It's meant to be supported by someone. It's meant to be witnessed, and it's meant to be ritualized. And unfortunately, we don't get that. And in our podcast on Tuesday, we're going to talk about what a healthy rite of passage looks like and how you can get that in your life now. But for now, just looking how to incorporate into your new identity now, there are 3 things I think are really helpful and were really helpful in my experience. One is accept that you are different. Accept that changes have happened and stop trying to force that round peg into a square hole. I think that's opposite. A square peg into a round hole. That's it. Stop trying to do that. Start accepting that there have been changes in you, and then acknowledge them. Like we talked about in the postpartum body changes, acknowledge what those changes are. Where in your life have things fallen away? Where have things been added? What new new daily actions, your new values, and your new inner world. And once you've done this and you've brought in all those new gifts and responsibilities and lessons of motherhood, and you've brought in all those little pieces of yourself that you still have and that you still make up your day-to-day life, look at what's missing. What are some things from your old identity that you do want to reincorporate into who you are? And let's figure out how to do that. You might not be able to do that exact action, but can you bring back the feeling that that thing gave you? I just put up a reel about this as well, that I used to love to dance. I taught myself how to shuffle the summer before my son was born, and I loved the way that made me feel, and I miss the way that made me feel. I'm not going to be able to dance for 2 hours in my garage anymore. However, I can seek that feeling. I can dance for 10 minutes at a time and still get that rush of endorphins of how it made me feel to be connected with the music and to move my body and to hit the perfect beat. I can still get that in moments. I can listen to music while I get ready in the morning, and I can dance to the songs that I loved so much. It's not the same, but it gives me the same feeling. So maybe you can't do those things, at least in the capacity that you once did, but how can we integrate them back into who you are? If you need support in doing this, I am here for you. My contact information is down below, and I would love to help walk you through this. This is such a prevalent thing. Like I said, over 60% of women experience this lost sense of self or this lost sense of identity. However, how many people are stepping into that new one? How many people are using that lost sense of self to find themselves again? I think it takes effort, but I think it is very possible. So that's it for today's video. I hope you found it helpful. If you want more information, if you want my guided support, again, all my information is down below. You can follow me on Instagram at Sam Thompson Hall. And for anything else, go to welcome-mama.com. As always, thank you for being here, and welcome, Mama. You deserve to enjoy this. So I have a full video. Oh, that's got a check in it. My delivery is here. It's not for go. Get out. Get out. He's already come and gone. He's already come and gone. Your relationships. Hopper! I need a hopper reel. Then take the time